Okay, let's look at our blending adjustment parameters. So we're happy with the curves, we're happy with the surfaces, we're happy with the cutting points and the blend that we get. There's one final thing we can do once we're done playing with those, and that is to play a little bit with the internal points of the blending grids. For example, the first ones that we can look at. I don't want the intermediate, I want the final surface grids. I want the blended edge grids. Okay, in here, for a single one of these guys, for example this one, there's an edge with 4 points, and there's an edge with 6 points. It's a 6-4 grid and a 6-4 surface. All right, that's in the name, 6-4. That's what those numbers mean. This side here is still cubic, and it's basically identical to the original surface. But this guy here is where the blending is happening. And so the first 3 points here deal with aligning to this surface. And the bottom 3 points deal with aligning to this surface. And then putting them together into a 5-line grid here, 6 points, 5 lines, it creates the blend. This blend has a couple of adjustable parameters. There are tangent scales that affect the first 4 lines on this side. See the 4 short little lines? This adjusts their length. But when you do that, it recalculates. So by adjusting the lengths of the 4 little lines, I will shift these 3 lines upward. But that will also recalculate the next row. And it's, in general, this effect is way too strong. You do not want to be messing with these tangent scales. It's like trying to sculpt with a chainsaw. There are very rare circumstances where you might want to do that, but in general, it's not what you should do first. First, you should try to mess with these other guys. Let me show you what this one does. I'm going to give this a value of 4. These lines doubled in length. It used to be 2, now it's 4. So these lines doubled in length, and they had a very dramatic effect on the next line. It adjusted the next line so they would maintain curvature continuity, the radius of curvature on these guys. It does that automatically. That's way too strong of an effect. And this effect travels into the adjacent double blends, but it does more than that. It actually breaks the tangency of this double blend to this guy. If I wanted this to work, I would have to do it on this guy as well. So that's a bad idea in general, almost never what you want to do. If you wanted to do this kind of effect of dragging the blend up or down a little bit here, you would go to the inner scale, which means moving just the second row of lines. It means dragging this point up and down, dragging this point up and down, dragging this point here up and down, and dragging this point here up and down, the net effect of which moves these 3 lines, which go across these points. So let's do that. Take this guy, and I'm going to do them all at once, just for show. I'm going to do 4, 4, 4, 4, just so you can identify the second line, the second inner line moving, but without the first line moving. And now, this effect is much more, it still moves the blend, but the effect is more reasonable, and it is fully absorbed within the next double blend you run into. And this does not require you to do the same change to the next one. So this is the way to work, because it's very localized. Most of the time, the reason you want to go into here is not to make a dramatic change like this, but because you like the way the blend works on one side, you like the curve that you get right here, but you don't really like the curve that you get on this side. So instead of adjusting all 4 of these values together, you adjust them in a pair. Say you leave two of them at the default values because you like that side, and you leave the other two, and you make the other two bigger. Let's look at this change. See, this side went back to the default, but I still have this side fairly high. So now I haven't changed this side at all whatsoever. This side and the next double blend and everything is exactly the way it was. The curve right here is exactly the way it was. The tangency approaching this edge is exactly the way it was, but I have created this raised side right here. Now, I happen to think this is a bad design choice because this setup was pretty good. It doesn't need this. But if for some reason you thought this corner here was too flat, you could do this. So, as a matter of fact, let's do that. Let's say, oh, I really want this edge of the blend right here to be really pinched. This corner is too soft. I like the size of the blend, but I don't like that it's so soft right here. So I can sharpen it by dragging this line and this line close to each other. 4 was too much though, because it jumped above the upper part. So I'm going to do 3 instead. Okay, great. It's no longer jumping above. As a matter of fact, it's almost in line. You know, it's still a tad too much. You got to be reasonable. Let's do 2.5, 2.5. I only want 4 lines. Make sure you only have 4 items in here. They're all numbers. Okay, so I've pushed this up towards the other surface, and now I'm going to push this guy towards here. See, this corner is already sharper than this guy. I'm bringing the pinch back to the corner. And so now I did these 2 numbers right here. Which ones do I want to do, and which ones on this side are the matching ones? They're the ones right below. So if I did 2.5 on these, on the first 2 and the other one, I'm going to do 2.5 on these ones as well. And watch, this line is going to move forward. See? And now I'm really localizing the pinch to this edge right here. So what this does is it allows me to vary the size of the blend, to vary the effective size of the fillet action within the blend at a given blend size. See, because the blend size is where it cuts into the surface. The fillet action is how much it pinches. So here I have a very soft filleting, which means it curves the whole time. More so on the vertical face because the vertical face is smaller, but it rolls the whole time. And here I have pushed the rounding action towards the top. And I can inch back and forth on this and get as close as I want. So here, I can't go any higher with this guy or it's going to create an upper ridge. But this guy here, I can keep pushing it. 2.75 did this much. Let's see, can I do 3? I don't think this is such a great idea, but technically, as long as you don't reverse, as long as you don't push these guys past each other and create a reversal, you could try to make this corner extremely sharp. Now, terrible idea for this surfboard. I'm just doing this just to show you what the system can do. You notice that all these changes are very small. I'm making very small changes, and still, this side is completely unaffected, and I have now faked a small blend. Let me put some quality on these things. FreeCAD decided to bring all my objects back to lower quality when I reopened the file, so I need to put them back up. I also had moved this down just to take a screenshot. Let me move this. Let me pick my CAD objects. I don't care about the primaries right now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hide them in a second. I'm going to do just the blended solids. 0.4, hopefully that's enough. It's thinking, it's thinking. It's thinking. Okay, so now you can see here, this is very silly. But I have created a sharp corner within my blend that is only on half of this blended, on half of this edge blend. it goes halfway into the double blend and then it fades out. So once I have a topology, I cannot just move the cutting points independently from one side to each other. They follow each other. But if you really, really want to say, well, I really wanted this to be sharp over here and soft over there, you can do that to some extent by manipulating the blending grid directly. So the cutting points force you to have a given size of the blend, but you can work inside the blend to effectively have a varying fillet radius within the blend. And it can be along the whole edge of the blend, which will then intrude halfway into the next double blends, or it can be on half of the edge blend and then go into the next double blend. Now, one thing you have to be careful is, okay, I showed you moving an entire row. I showed you moving 2 points halfway across a row. You got to be really careful if you only move a single point. Because if you only move a single point, it's going to create angles in between these lines. And see, now the angles in here don't matter too much because they're within the blend. But if you have really sharp angles reaching this edge here, it can screw up your double blend because these angles are shoved into this guy. Let me turn on some intermediate blending grids, specifically the corner subgrids. I'm talking about this guy right here. I just want to see this guy. It's 38. Right now, because I kept these lines parallel by moving both of these points by 3.5, these guys are still parallel. Look at what happens if I bring the edge point all the way back to 2. If I say, oh no, I only want this effect right here, it's thinking. It's pushing this line really hard in this area. And if you do it too much, you could even end up pushing it past here and really screw up your blend. So what's happening now? The pinching action that I wanted has almost disappeared, but I have a little bit left of it right here. There is a little bit left of it here, right? This pinching still is showing up right here. But now it's kind of having a hard time as it goes back into the corner. So it's really tricky. I really recommend, in general, move these guys in pairs. Because the effect of moving just a single one is very hard to control, and it can lead you to forcing lines to crisscross. Let's actually make it really bad. When I go here and I say, what if this one was like something crazy like 8? Give it a moment. Maybe I need to hit F5. Okay. So I have this really dramatic change in the middle of the grid. And it's pushing this really odd angle into this guy's grid. Let me find that guy's grid. It's in view. It's a cubic surface, which comes from here. Here's its grid. All right, see, this wild line right here doesn't do anything so horrible within the blend itself. I mean, it does cause a ripple, but it's pushing weird stuff into the corner subgrid, which then means that my double blend has some weird stuff in it. So let me put these guys back to normal. 2, 2, okay, and then this guy here, back to all 2s. I think this blend was fine, didn't need any of this business. But these adjustments are available. If you have really crazy primary surfaces, stuff with belly buttons, like inverted corners, or you're blending a lot away, you might end up with grids that come with a weird S-curve. And you can use these values here to try to cancel out the S-curve and bring it back to a normal shape. So all the changes I did here was taking something good and turning it into something bad. Why would you do that? Well, the use case is when the blend comes overshooting and creating weird dimples, you can use these values to undo the dimples. Now, the other type of object we might want to edit is these corner subgrids themselves. So let's find this cubic surface here. Find its grid, turn it on, and then we look at its subgrids. Let's find one of them, turn it on, and look around close here to find the other ones. Okay, so this one is not part of it, so that means that its subgrids are the next four. There is something I probably want to adjust on here. And it is this point here and this point here. The two lower ones are actually fine because they came from relatively flat surfaces and they roll around this corner and they're pretty good. Same as these guys. I don't want to adjust anything on this. The default values were good because these were fairly normal blends, right? Four-sided. There's a blend, a real blend here, a real blend here, a real blend here, and a real blend here. The default subgrids are pretty nice. But here that's not the case. Now, from here to here, there's a real blend. So I would say these two are okay-ish. From here to here, there's a real blend. So I would say these two on the bottom here are okay-ish. But the ones that are involved with this guy are not very good because that's our red triangle, which we're using as a scaffold. And so the default values for these subgrids here make these two really ugly points. I want to work just on those two. I have two adjustment values in a subgrid, and they both deal with moving this point here. The directions in which it will move are related to this edge and related to this edge. One value moves this point in this direction, so like this, and one of these values moves this point in this direction, so like this. To find out which one is which, just type in a 1, see which way it moved. It's thinking. Okay, so adjust value 0, adjust 0 moves this way. But that was way too much. Let's try 0.5. Okay, that's kind of making these things align, but it's still a little bit too much. I would say it's right 0.375. Because we want to do this in a gradual manner. We don't want to align things in a straight line. Okay, so this is starting to be more reasonable, and right now it's making me want to push it this way, right, to thin out this area, but let me look at it in 3D before I do that. Yeah, I really do want to do that. Now I want to take this value here and I want to do a negative because I don't want to go in this direction. I want to back off actually. I'm going to do minus 0.5. So from the corner, I'm coming back. I'm coming back this way. Okay, good. That's what I want. So see, these lines are starting to merge into each other. I like that. But now, it's a little bit too far out this way. So this 0.375 value is now too much. I'm going to make it just 0.3. And it should come back this way a little bit. Okay, that's what I wanted. And this guy right here, I just want to tuck it in a little bit this way. I'm going to try a minus 0.5 here on this one. I don't know which direction it is. Is it going to move this way or that way? That's not the one I wanted, so I just put it back at 0. Do the next one. This is, if you really want to do a lot of work and really even out this grid, you should lower the quality. I'm just doing a little bit to show you. So it wasn't this one that I wanted. It's this one. And do I want more of this? No, I want less. So I'm going to do a minus. Compared to the size of this line, do I want to move a lot or a little? I want to move a little. I'm going to do minus 0.1. Thinking. That didn't do much. Maybe try minus 0.5. Make sure I've identified the correct direction. I want this to go back this way. This is interesting. Do a full -1. Make sure I haven't misunderstood which direction is which. It seems I did. This is not the direction I want to go. It's the other one. Here, I'm going to do minus 0.5. I should pull it back this way a lot. Okay, so that's the direction, but this is way too much. Minus 0.1 here. Obviously, a tool that considers all 4 subgrids at once and does this rough alignment would be good. But right now I've done about as much as I want to do. If we compare to what it was like on the other side, this is better. And if we compare to what it's doing on the bottom, it's better. But even though this one here, I'm going to turn them all on. Even though this one here was way more distorted right here, and I've improved it, how much actual difference does it make on my model? I can't say I really see the difference. So it's an adjustment that exists. In extreme cases, you might want to use it and say, I can't have this grid be so uneven in the center, so I'm going to do this work. Right? I don't want this on my, so I need to do this kind of manual tweaking, which produces a more gradual change along the grid. But in the case of this surfboard, I gotta say, it just doesn't matter. It is not worth my time at this point to do these tweaks. So the last thing to do really is to do a little quick look on the zebra on this guy. I have everything at reasonable quality, but to do the zebra, I don't want to look at the primary surfaces. That's not very interesting. And I don't want to look at the model. I don't want to look at this, and I don't want to look at that. I just want to look at the zebra just with this guy. And maybe I'll crank up the surface quality. So I turn on the zebra. Oh, this is not the zebra tool. This is the surface analysis tool from the Curves workbench. And you know, I've never really played with this. Does it have data that I can edit? No, it creates an object. This object has no data. But it has details in the view properties. So it's implemented as a view object. Nice. Let me play with this a little bit because I've never really done it. Number of stripes, 12. How about 24? Okay, do I have the angle thing like I do in... Do I have the angle thing like I do with the zebra tool? Color 1, color 2, that's fine. Oh, angles right here. There as a list. I could edit these as a list. ISO tolerance. Rainbow angle here. Start angle of the rainbow, 90. Update. Did that do anything? I can't tell. Surface analysis, 90. Stripes ratio, 0.5. Stripe ratio, 0.25. Okay. We'll do 60 stripes. You know, there's got to be a reason this was created, and maybe it's even better than the zebra tool. But it's not obvious to me how this is better than the zebra tool or the specific value that it might have. I'm still going to crank up my resolution just for this test to 0.05. It's thinking. Should be okay because I'm not going to do any more edits. It's thinking. You know, I should really read up on this object. I don't know what it really is, but you know, I just like the ease of use of the zebra tool. See, I have this scale right here. It's easy to move around, although I'm ultra high resolution, so my graphics are going to be slow. But I really like having this rotation here, and it reacts really fast. So on most of my surface, I would say I'm doing okay. See, pretty good quality. Obviously, when you go across a blend, you expect a sharp change. That doesn't mean it's low quality. We play with the rotation along here. See, I've got really ultra high quality. I'm seeing roughness in these areas. That's unexpected. Now here, it's really important, is I am seeing the defect in my rounded triangles. Here and here. This is real. This wobbling thing here is a real defect. And when I click outside, and you see this business here, this wobble, that's real. That is the defect of my red triangle. This is why I have to replace it with a surface from the surface workbench. I have a good transition into my triangle, but the triangle has a ripple in the middle. You can't see it with the naked eye in this case because my top and bottom surfaces where I have placed my rounding triangles were fairly flat. They have a very smooth, low curvature. So you can't really see it. But if you look at the final blending grids and you look at these spider webs for the rounded triangles, they are what was causing the wobble in the zebra. So that's why you replace them with the fill surface from the surface workbench. But really, I don't want to drag this on too much. I showed you the blend adjustment parameters that you can adjust the blended edges. And so you can adjust an entire row. You can adjust 2 points on one edge of a row, or you can adjust a single point if you're very careful. These adjustments to the edge blending grids feed into the double blend, so you have to be really careful with what you do, because a sharp angle in your blending grid can cause a crisscross in your double blending grid, so you want to avoid that. And even though the default values of the double blend are pretty reasonable in cases where you have 4 corners or when everything is at 90 degrees, the default values are pretty bad when you have one of these rounded triangles. So they're bad in the sense that they have this kink between these 2 lines. But by going to each subgrid, you can carefully adjust those and align them a little bit better, like I did here. See? These 2 lines right here were the equivalent of these 2 lines over here. But most of the time, the effect is negligible, and so you should really focus on making your primary curves and your primary surfaces better, and placing your blends and placing your cutting points better. But one of the things you can do with those, by adjusting these blends, is you can, by tucking the points back towards the corner, you can create the impression of a smaller blend by pinching that blend. And so you can obtain the illusion of a sharp corner even when you have a very large blend. So that can be useful in some cases. But in the case of the surfboard, I was happy already. See you next time.